Hello, friends. I was running a little bit late as I am taping 3 shows today. So here I am. Late, but here. How are all of you? Welcome to Woke Wednesday, dear friends. I apologize for being 8 minutes late, but I am here. But I did give you a teaser this morning if you were able to tune in very quickly to my hot take on why Democratic strategists are just, fucking up the reason why Virginia was lost after a decade of being blue. And guess what? Here's a radical idea. It's not because of fucking black people, okay? So, dear pundits, stop with your hot take bullshit and trying to once again scapegoat the black community for your own fuckery. I digress. Friends, you know the drill. If you have been here before on Woke Wednesday, please drop an emoji in the comment section and let me know how you are feeling today. Because I have to tell you, how am I feeling? Let me pull up my own emoji. I'm feeling like this. I am feeling like this. I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling like this. Post. So you tell me how you are feeling today. Because let me just say, first of all, we're supposed to talk about the Supreme Court. I'm supposed to talk about a whole host of things, and I will get to every single one of those. But I got to tell you, I just really want to talk to all of you who are here. So yes, you're putting up the angry faces. You're putting up the cursing faces. Is there anybody in here right now that lives in Virginia? Because I want to know from all of you, were you fucking shocked? Were you shocked about the fact that Virginia went for Youngkin? Because I wasn't. I lived in Virginia for a number of fucking years. I lived outside in the DMV for well over a fucking decade. I could have told you that Trump Light was going to sell really well in the Confederacy. So I don't know why Democrats right now are pretending like they weren't aware of what was going on. And also, just an idea, instead of blaming black people or blaming young people, because this is the other thing too, they're also trying to blame the 18 to 35-year-old set and say that, oh, they didn't show up. And I'm saying to you, do you know why those folks maybe didn't show up? Maybe it's because they're saddled with student loan debt that you don't care about forgiving. Maybe it's because you're giving them a country and a planet, for that matter, that is in the shitter, that they're going to have to inherit and figure out something to do, when in fact you have the time to correct the climate change crisis, but you're just choosing not to because capitalism and greed. So maybe you're not offering the 18 to 30 something set what it is that they actually fucking need and what they thought that they voted for in 2020. And guess who they have to blame for all of these things? Not black and brown people, friends. No, they have to blame two senators. 2 senators are the reason why Virginia went red. Joe Manchin, say it with me, and that denim-wearing piece of trash, Kirsten Sinema. Yeah, I said what the fuck I said. I don't care. I woke up this morning, and I was like, I knew it last night. And here's the thing, this is what I'll say on Woke AF, is that I don't watch election night anymore. I really don't. Unless somebody is inviting me to be on their program, I don't waste my energy. I would rather have a good night's sleep. I would rather pour a glass of wine, watch a show on Netflix, than to follow all of the bullshit hot takes. Do you know who else had a hot take yesterday? Van Jones. But doesn't he always? He referred to Youngkin as the Delta variant of Trump. Very witty, very funny. But that's also the same black man who said that Donald Trump was presidential because he could read from a teleprompter from one of his bullshit State of the Unions. Right? That, oh, this is the day that Donald Trump became president, with a tear in his eye. Fuck you. Okay, that's what I have to say about that. I don't need your hot takes when you're deciding who and who isn't presidential. When you're going to blame people of color for not showing up when, in fact, they show up all the time. Do you know who we never blame? Who is never drawn up for a segment unless we want to go, oh, the poor Karens? Oh, how about we talk about the 56% of white women who voted for Youngkin? How about we talk about the 56% of non-college educated white women who decided that Youngkin was their guy? The same 56% of white women who decided in 2020 that Trump was their guy. The same 53% of white women that decided in 2016 that Trump was their guy. So ask me, why do Democrats keep chasing after white women instead of actually looking at the rest of the party, the ones that actually provide them with the votes, the ones that actually show up in mass? Why is it that they are constantly fucking peddling to the white soccer mom, the hockey mom, whatever fucking Karen sport that this bitch is at, instead of actually providing the people who show up 90% of the time with the fucking policies that they say that they need? And then you want to turn around and say, well, you know, we can't just execute a black agenda. Well, guess what? What is good for the goose is good for the fucking gander. If you were to actually center your policies for the least among us, then the most of us would be successful. Instead, in this country, we love to center our policies to the fucking top 1% in the hopes and prayers that their philanthropy and charity will trickle down to the rest of us. Well, that's not the way that it fucking works. It didn't work during Reagan. It doesn't work fucking now. But it's the same bullshit that we've been pulling out. Meanwhile, Republicans are still using the same 50-year-old playbook that they've been using, which is what? Racism, right? We had a whole fucking election cycle in Virginia around critical race theory. Do you know what's not taught in Virginia? K through 12 schools? Critical race theory. Do you know where critical race theory is taught? Law school, at the collegiate level. That's where it is, right? But all you need to do is provide already enraged, racist, angry white people who believe in the scarcity model, because that's where they function from. If anyone else is going to have a piece of their pie, that means that they are losing something. Do you know what Republicans are really good at? Peddling the fucking scarcity model, right? And letting them know that, oh my God, black people can't get this, and brown people can't have this, and gay people can't have that, because that is going to delegitimize your fucking power. I am so sick of it. Why is it that I can see this and you can see this, but the people that represent us, that we vote for, choose not to? Because I'm starting to wonder, do you think that it's a strategy that Democrats have? Do you think that they actually want to win? Because they sure as fuck don't act like they want to win. They don't act like we gave them power in 2020. But then they want to come back to us and tell us that they need more, but you don't know what to do with the fuck the power is that you have right now. We could have, just think about this for a moment, right? Going into this election yesterday, do you know what we could have gone in if, in fact, we didn't have Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema holding on to the filibuster like a fucking child holds on to a bottle? That if, in fact, we had gotten rid of the filibuster, blown it up because it's a racist fucking structure that allows very low populated rural areas to have power when in fact they shouldn't. If we had gotten rid of the filibuster, Democrats could have run on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. They could have run on the passage of police reform. They could have run on a fucking bipartisan infrastructure bill. But instead, because of Kyrsten Sinema and because of Joe Manchin, we had nothing to run on but infighting and the idea that Terry McAuliffe wasn't Donald Trump. And also, Terry McAuliffe, right? Your past, legions of work in Virginia as the governor from 2013. Why couldn't you run on what the fuck Northam had done over the past couple of years? Again. But you all want to turn around and tell us who didn't do the job as opposed to looking in the fucking mirror. Here's the thing. White people are no longer the cornerstone of the Democratic Party, but nobody seems to have told Democratic leadership that. Is that they are, as you will hear when Democracy-ish goes live tomorrow, they are the BIPOC party. That's it. That's who is the bread and butter and the foundation of the Democratic Party. But Democrats don't actually want that. They want white people back. And they will twist themselves into political pretzels. They will do an entire contortionist fucking Simone Biles act in order to appeal to white people that don't want to fuck with them. Like, wake the fuck up. How many times does somebody have to say, I don't fuck with you, before you realize, oh, maybe I should look over there to so-and-so because they're the ones that are showing up for me. Also, here's another thing. Here's an idea, Democrats. maybe instead of thinking in 2-year cycles and 4-year cycles, just in elections that play out and immediate gratification, maybe create a plan for your long-time takeover of red states. You know, the same way that Republicans have been playing the long game to wipe away Roe v. Wade, that they've had the long game in their eyes on all of the federal courts and the Supreme Court that they have been doing, right? They've been working on this, folks, since 1973 when Roe v. Wade fucking passed. Generations have gone by and they never gave up the Roe v. Wade bone. But Democrats sitting around talking about, well, it's the law of the land. Bitch, ain't nothing the law of the land. When you can rotate out Supreme Court justices the same way that you fucking do socks, wake up. We never talk about the courts on our side. Right? Because we like to believe what? That they're impartial? They're fucking people just like everybody else. And if you need to understand anything about the courts right now, are you paying attention to the Kyle Rittenhouse case that is happening right now with the fucking judge who decided, Schroeder, who decided that we're not going to refer to the victims, the 2 people that Kyle Rittenhouse murdered in cold blood? That judge, that federal circuit judge in Wisconsin decided that no, victims is too loaded of a word, but you can refer to them as looters, that you can refer to them as arsonists? How? The people are dead, and yet you have this white male judge that is getting to dictate whether or not we can see them as victims. We are only in the beginning stages of the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and I will tell you that, guess what? That motherfucker, that little white supremacist is gonna fucking walk. That's what's going to happen. We're not gonna see the Derek Chauvin outcome with Kyle Rittenhouse because the judge has already set the tone that the people that he murdered, it was like justifiable homicide. When we know that Kyle Rittenhouse got an AR-15, drove across state to a different state, slung that fucking rifle over his shoulder, looking for people to kill. And do you know what the police officers did that passed him on the street? Do you know what they did? They didn't pull him over. They didn't throw him to the ground, right? They didn't shoot him on sight like they do black people who are lawfully armed. No. They said, son, do you want some water? Son, are you okay? So you want to tell me again about our court system, our injustice system? This is the fucking long game that Republicans have been playing. 300 justices Mitch McConnell sat during the Trump administration. We have been in power for 11 months. Ask me how many fucking federal judges Biden has pushed through. None. Ask me how many pieces of legislation Biden has signed. None. But then you want to turn around and blame black people for not turning out to fucking vote when we voted, but it's your white folks that decided that no, racism is their jam because that's the only way that they can hold on to fucking power. Wake up. It's the same game. They just figure out a different component each and every time to usher in their racism. Youngkin is fucking Trump light. What did I tell you all? I said as soon as Republicans realize, right? If you find somebody that is younger, that has a softer tone, but the same ideology as Donald Trump with none of the bluster, that is going to be your next president. Right? This is how it happens. I can clearly remember sitting in school, in high school. History, obviously, was one of my favorite classes. Government, I loved it so much. And I can remember learning about the Holocaust, learning about the rise of the Third Reich. And I always would ask my teachers, how in God's name was this able to happen? How did these people, how were they so unaware? How were they so callous that they would watch their neighbors be carted off to God knows where and their homes taken over and they do nothing about it because they didn't give a fuck about their neighbor, right? That is just something nice that white evangelicals say when they use their Bible, right? They say, oh, love thy neighbor, so long as they look like you, pray like you, and fuck like you. That's what they mean. So just tell the truth. Do you know Terry McAuliffe, he had one fucking job. Do you know what he could have done? He could have painted Youngkin as the fucking Jim Crow candidate that he was. But he didn't. He decided not to. He decided instead to have a debate about critical race theory, which again is not even being taught in Virginia schools. But somehow, over the course of that campaign, education moved up 9 percentage points. 9 percentage points. But was it about education in terms of having broadband access in all of our schools, retrofitting our buildings, making sure that our children are breathing in fresh air? No, that is not what they were talking about. Making sure that your kids are eating safe and nutritious food, making sure that they have a curriculum that is going to allow them to be competitive, right? No, education, right, was the desire of white parents to be able to dictate what their white kids should and shouldn't learn, because they don't want little Johnny and little Susie to feel bad about themselves by learning that their grandparents and great-grandparents are fucking racist just like their parents are. As it's been said time and time again, if black and brown children are young enough to experience racism, then your fucking white kids are young enough to learn about racism, right? And how it is infested in every single part of our society. I am just sick to fucking death of the excuses. Democrats, to me, have just become the party of excuses. Excuses and hand-wringing. I'm told all the time, oh, Danielle, Biden has only been around for 11 months. He's only been in power for 11 months. And guess what? Guess what my response is? Well, you have 24 months. You had 24 months. Now you have 12 months to the fucking day until the 2022 midterms. And let me tell you, yes, friends, I'm not telling you that all is lost. A lot can change in a year. A lot changes in a year all the time. But things only change if you want them to change. If you see that it's necessary to make a stop, pivot, and turn. But that's not what we're fucking doing. We're pulling the same excuses and we're blaming the same communities. And then we turn around and ask those same communities to show up and vote for us en masse. And I want to turn around and be like, bitch, what have you done for me? Am I telling people not to vote? I never would. I vote all the fucking time, right? Because voting is important. But do I understand why people don't want to vote? Yeah. Are Democrats giving them all the reasons why there's no difference, there's no daylight between them and Republicans? Yeah, they are. Every day, they want to tell me, well, Danielle, you know, we have to do our compromises with the Manchins and the Cinemas of the world, with the moderates. Those are not fucking moderates, right? They are not. They're obstructionists. So let's start using appropriate language. Joe Manchin is not a moderate. Joe Manchin has been representing West Virginia for 40 years in a multitude of capacities. Do you know where West Virginia is in most metrics in this country? Fucking dead last, or near dead last. So tell me what the fuck Joe Manchin has actually been doing for West Virginia. But West Virginians are literally too underwater, literally underwater, and then underwater in debt to be paying attention to the fact that that motherfucker is worth about $8 million. Now, how is Joe Manchin worth $8 million when his salary in the Senate is $184,000 a year? Oh, well, let me tell you, that's because of his son's energy company. And when we say energy company, we mean coal, right? Because of their investments in coal and the fact that his wife gets a $600,000 plus salary a year from their son's company, and then Joe Manchin gets to benefit from his investments in his son's coal company. It is Big Coal who is his biggest constituent, not the people of fucking West Virginia. So when we're looking at an infrastructure bill that is going to be able to contest with our climate crisis, and Joe Manchin says he's uncomfortable with the climate change language in there, means that he's uncomfortable taking money out of his own pocket and out of his kids' mouths, right? That's what he means. He could give a fuck about whether or not parts of West Virginia are going to be underwater and those people are going to be able to get to work. There are towns in West Virginia that have been hit with storms where, guess what? They still haven't rebuilt elementary schools or fire departments. Do you think Joe Manchin gives a fuck about that when he's sitting on his $700,000 yacht? No, he doesn't. What about Kirsten Sinema, who decided to skip negotiations on infrastructure and hightailed it over to Europe so that she could raise money? I'm not really great at geography, but I'm pretty sure that Europe isn't a part of Arizona. And I'm pretty sure those aren't her fucking constituents. But do you know who is one of her biggest constituents? Big Pharma. So I wonder why she didn't want to have level off in terms of the amount of money that people are paying for prescription drugs, because that would hurt her bottom line as well. You see what the problem is here, dear friends, is that money in politics and the fact that most of our politicians are bought and sold like the two-bit whores that they are, right? They don't have to listen to us because we don't give them the money, right? So I always say when people are like, I wonder how they're going to vote. And I'm like, you don't have to wonder. You just have to look at who their biggest funder is. And then that will tell you everything that you fucking need to know. It's not rocket science, folks. It is not too complicated, right? For us to figure all of this out. It is really fucking clear what is happening here. And like I tell people on Woke AF all the time, if you have not read Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, it is what we are living right now. I said on social media earlier today, I said, you know what? I feel like what is happening, you have a multitude of cases right now at the Supreme Court. On Monday, they heard the Texas abortion ban case, right? Where it may seem like the bounty hunter part of the abortion ban may be striked, but guess what? They're also hearing in December the Mississippi ban, which bans abortions after 15 weeks, which guess what? They will most likely uphold that decision for abortions at 15 weeks. So they will say that Roe v. Wade still exists, but it really won't. It will just be Roe v. Wade light or Roe v. Wade hollowed. Do you know what else they're hearing this week, right now at the Supreme Court? A 100-year-old case, right? A 100-year-old law that doesn't allow people in New York City, where I am, it's Times Square that's behind me, that's why you're seeing all of the billboards flash by, that they're going to hear a case that would allow for people to carry concealed weapons in the densely populated city that I live in, right? Which means that, you know, on the subway, walking into restaurants, that any motherfucker could have a 9mm gun or an AR-15. Because, you know, freedom. That's the other case that's being heard. And what I said on social media is pretty much like we are living in a world that is Squid Game meets Black Mirror, and in the middle is us, right? The fuckery that is America right now. So you won't be able to get an abortion, but you sure as fuck will be able to get a gun. You won't have a good paying job, but you sure as hell will be able to get a gun and kill your neighbor and maybe take over his property, because we're living in the wild, wild west. Folks, I am outdone this Wednesday. I am outdone every fucking week. I'm like, when are we gonna breathe, right? Like, when do I get to start to feel better? I did my job, you did your job, y'all voted. And I keep wondering, when are things going to get better? When are we going to feel less stress? When am I going to feel like every day the end isn't closer and closer? It's like I'm opening up every fucking email well with, I hope that you're hanging in there, you know? Like, between it all, I feel fucking insane. But the good thing is that I'm not alone, because at least you all feel insane with me. All right, dear friends, that is it for me today on this Woke Wednesday. If you want to hear more of me, we have switched over to video on Patreon. So if you want to support independent Black queer voices like mine, head over to Patreon at patreon.com/wokeaf. You can now get Woke AF audio everywhere that you get your podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple, on all of the places. So do check it out. Do share it with all of your friends. The more the merrier, because we need to get through this hellscape together. As always, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke and stay woke as fuck. Until next week, y'all, do some meditation, roll a joint, take a sip of a cocktail, get a massage, go for a walk in nature. Do whatever you can do in order to keep yourself sane, okay? Until next week. Bye. Oh, wait. Next week. Am I coming back? Next Wednesday is my birthday. I'll decide game day decision whether or not I am doing Woke Wednesday. But you will have more of me, I promise, in the coming weeks. Ciao.